Okay, now you notice there when we looked at that map of Israel there were two parts, and last time you learned a little bit about Israel being divided into parts. We'll keep that thought in mind this evening as we go along, but tonight we are going to look at each of those parts. The northern part is Israel. The southern part is Judah. They were all once one kingdom, and they would be again, but for a time they split in two. And we're going to see about that tonight and how that happened. But first, how many of you watched The Big Bang Theory? Okay, you know how the very beginning has that timeline that just goes like that from all the way from Big Bang to right today? Let me give you a timeline real quick of the whole story, everything we've learned this semester, so you'll know what it is. After Adam and Eve, after Noah, then the land of Israel was kind of discovered, or actually a guy was led to it. A guy and his wife, they came from a far country because God promised them that there was going to be this land, and the old man and the old woman were named Abraham and Sarah. All right, they came to that land. It was called sometimes the land of Canaan, sometimes Palestine. Today it is again Israel, although there are a couple of Palestinian territories. But that land has been there a long, long time by a lot of the same people. So, Abraham and Sarah, they had a kid named Isaac, who had a kid named Jacob, who had 12 kids. One of them named Joseph, and Joseph went down into a country where they had pharaohs. The name of that country was? Egypt. All right, they were in Egypt. The Pharaoh, happy face. Let me see happy faces. Happy Pharaoh was there, liked Jacob, liked all his kids, liked his grandkids. So they were there for 400 years, except after Joseph died, the Pharaohs didn't like them so much anymore, and they made them slaves. Does anybody remember how many hundred years they were slaves in Egypt? 400 years. 400 years they were slaves in Egypt. Then God raised up a leader who led them out of Egypt through the Red Sea, which parted, and that leader was named Moses. All right. They wandered in the wilderness for a bunch of years. Anybody remember how many years they wandered in the wilderness? 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. Then they finally got home. Home was their promised land. It was the land of Canaan. It was Palestine. And they would come in. They would name it Israel eventually. So they looked around. God had raised up people to rule them called judges. And after a while they said, oh, look at all these other nations. They have kings. We want a king. And God said, no, kings will lead you down bad places. Kings are politicians. Kings don't listen to God all the time, so you don't want kings. And they said, yes, we want kings. And so God said, okay, you can have a king. First king was Saul. Saul was the first king. Then David was the great king. Solomon was the wise king. All right? Those three. Repeat after me. Saul, first king.
Saul, first king.
David, great king.
David, great king.
Solomon, wise king.
Solomon, wise king.
Turns out that even though Solomon was wise and became very wealthy, he also was kind of a bad boy. And he married hundreds of wives and had kind of sub-wives called concubines on the side, all right? He had like 700 wives, all right? And a lot of them came from foreign areas. They had foreign gods. God said, don't worship. First commandment, you shall have no other God before me. Solomon started worshiping other gods because, hey, my wives are worshiping them. I'll worship them too. Bad deal. God said, I knew kings would be a bad idea. So after Solomon died, the kingdom split in two. We had both these kingdoms, and that's where you were up to this last week with two kingdoms. Now God is going to have to do something because the people are following other gods. They're disobeying Him, and they're not taking care of the poor. Those were the three main things. They're disobeying God, they're worshiping other foreign gods, and they're not taking care of the poor. So, God is going to raise up people called, what's that top word in yellow?
Prophets.
Prophets. Those are prophets. Now, who can tell me what a prophet is? Yes?
A messenger of God.
A messenger of God. Very good, because you know what I thought that Mr. Delaney was going to say was they tell the future. A lot of times people think prophets tell the future. And sometimes today they say, oh, prophets are people who tell the future. Not in the Bible. Because in the Bible there are prophets who are, they're not fortune tellers. They're not future tellers. They don't tell what the future is going to be. They are truth tellers. So a prophet is a truth teller. Repeat that after me. A prophet is a truth teller. And they're going to tell the truth about you. If you're doing good, they'll say, hey, you're doing good. If you're doing bad, they'll say, you're doing bad, you need to do better. And so they tell the truth about people and also about God. Now, our big idea today is going to be this. Let's read it together. Though the people were not always faithful to God, God was always faithful to them. All right, God will be faithful even when they're not. But you know what? We've got to have, before we tell the story of the prophets and give you some of their names, we've got to have some vocabulary words, because the vocabulary words, we've got to understand them in order to understand prophets.
All right, so we're going to talk about some key words. All right, we'll read this first one for us here. Thank you, Miranda.
Prophet, a messenger for God who speaks out in acts of injustice, tells the truth about God and about people.
All right, so a prophet is a truth teller, a messenger from God that tells the truth about people, right? Remember the slide before this? A prophet is a truth teller, tells the truth. All right, who'll read that second one for me? Thank you, Christy.
In accuracy.
What's our word? What's our word?
Judgment.
Judgment.
An
Accusation.
about a person's actions. Prophets pronounce judgment on the king and the people because of their poor actions.
All right, so a judgment is an accusation. What's that word mean? What's accusation? That's a big word.
That should be a vocabulary word.
Say that again?
That should be our vocabulary.
That should be a vocabulary. Caston, what's accusation?
To assume or...
Okay.
Oh, we have that as a vocabulary.
Okay. Yes? Noah?
When you say you did this,
Yeah, when you accuse someone of something, you did this, right? Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll read our next word for us.
Sherlock Holmes?
Maggie.
Justice. The principle of right action and fairness as related to treating people fairly and honestly. Living in relationships of love and caring and upholding the powerless goes beyond obeying the law.
All right, so we're going to talk about justice today. We're going to talk about justice. Who's got our next one? Right here. Noel.
hope, trust in one or reliance on or something, someone or something.
Okay, trust in or reliance on someone or something. That's what hope means. Who's going to read our next one for us? Eston.
Confession, act of admitting your wrongdoing or sins.
All right. Act of admitting, telling someone, hey, I messed up. I did something wrong. Okay? Is that the end of our...
That is. Those are good vocabulary words. Good. Okay, if you would turn in your study Bibles. Do you have one? Okay. All right, good. Everybody turn in their study Bibles.
They have their Bible ready? All right.
Remember, a study Bible not only has the Bible, but it has some pages that help you learn things about the Bible. Turn to page 545. 545.
I have pictures of two puppies.
545.
Got it.
545. Here's a list of all the kings of Israel and Judah. Oh, look. When it was united as one, the first king was
Saul.
the great king was David. The wise king was the third one, Solomon. All right, then it's split. Now look at that. Judah has all these kings. Judah's in the south, and Israel is in the north. Okay? Some of these were good kings, but not very many. Most of them were bad kings because they kept going after other gods, and they kept getting led astray, and they would not follow God. Let's look. Okay, one way you can remember, if you can think of alphabetical order, I comes before J. So Israel is in the north, and below it is Judah.
They should have put these the other way in the Bible. Just
You think so?
Yes.
Why is that?
Like North Korea is nice.
Because then Judah comes first in
Never
here. Just
eat
because.
sour watermelon.
Well, okay, that's good. And you know, it does seem kind of fair that one part of them got to keep the name of the whole country, Israel, but because they had all been one. In fact, let's look at the next slide with a map again. Now, if you look at the map, this white area was the kingdom of Israel, the northern part, and this was in about the year 900 or so. because King David ruled about the year 1000. That's 1000 BC. That's before Christ. So David had actually set his capital about here, which is Jerusalem. He's the one who set up Jerusalem and built it up, made it a big city, because it had been just a little bitty city before, and he made it a great big city, made it the capital, and Judah got to keep the capital. By the way, just for your geography, up here is the Sea of Galilee. When you read in the Bible about Jesus, who came later and went around the Sea of Galilee, lived around that area, that's where he was. If you follow the Jordan River right down here, this sea is the Dead Sea. I have floated in that. In fact, you can, if you get in it, it's full of salt. You don't have to have anything to hold you. You just go in there and you float right on top of the water. It's called the Dead Sea. It is the lowest place on earth. It's the lowest place on earth.
Wait, when you're
Why do they
floating or
call
when
it
you
the
like
sea?
swim down the
Because nothing
bottom?
can live in it. It's full of salt. True. The Jordan River runs into it and it doesn't put any water out. It's just a still body of water and it is dead. By the way, today, you see these red lines? That is the land of Israel today.
Wow!
Except right over here, have you heard about the bombing, that Gaza and Israel having kind of a war lately? That's where Gaza is. And then kind of where Jerusalem is, kind of over here on the west bank of the Jordan River, that is also a Palestinian area. They're always fighting. Guess what? They have been fighting for 3,000 years. Since Abraham first came in and since Moses came up out of Egypt and led people in, they have been fighting for over 3,000 years in this area right here.
Talk about the longest war.
All right. Got your kings in Israel, got your kings in Judah. You have your priests in Israel, you have your priests in Judah. Those are kind of the leaders of everything. The government. In fact, one of the things that happens, not only do the kings sometimes worship other gods, but even the priests in the temple will allow people sometimes to do that because they think it's kind of beneficial, it'll make everybody happy, and they can worship other. By the way, other gods in those days, they literally thought like there were gods that lived in little idols or things like that. But gods can be anything that we make number one. What are some gods today that we worship?
iPods.
What was it?
Technology.
Technology, okay. iPods, technology, buying stuff, Black Friday, everybody goes buy things, Monday, everybody buying things online. But we consume. So that a lot of time is our God when we want to buy everything we can. Yes?
The day that Albert Einstein feared has come true. He once said, "I fear the day that technology will rule the world."
Yeah, really? Yes, and here we are. It is really ruling the world. And so they may not have had gods like we do, but they also liked power. They liked having, lots of things. They liked having the men, especially. They could marry several wives.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was considered, if someone was really well off if they had 100 wives. And so, so they were not worshiping God, and they were ignoring the poor. Throughout the Bible, over and over again, there are probably more verses overall on the poor. And how God had told people they were to, like if they were farmers and they owned a field and they were going to harvest the wheat, then they had to leave behind X amount so the poor could come in and have enough.
Well, it's like don't go over it to get the. Don't go over it, like plow it a second time.
That's right. Don't plow it a second time. Leave that so the poor can come in. So God had always said take care of the poor. What was happening now in both Israel and Judah, there were a lot of people who were no longer taking care of the poor. So some people rose up. And let's look at the next slide.